What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm the Croc Neck and I am back with some more underrated albums. This time I'm going to cover something I wanted to cover for a while and it just recently got brought up in the comments, well, like kind of recently, and I decided it was time. We're going to go over some post-metal. Now, this one is maybe a little bit wide-reaching because there's a lot of bands out there that use post-metal elements in terms of the weird atmosphere, the dissonant melodies, the kind of slower, cleaner passages, you know, a lot of hallmarks of post-metal. So there's some stuff that kind of blends in with sludge metal, even hardcore, but I picked 10 albums that I think are underrated, of course, and that pretty much have all the tropes of the style itself. This was a style that I got into, God, really early on, just because I saw Neurosis all the way back in 1997 and it really had a huge impact on me. And most of my post-metal listening is centered around that band because if it sounds like Neurosis, there's a damn good chance I'll like it, which is why I got into ISIS and The Ocean and a litany of other bands and the bands you're going to hear right here, because I'm probably going to bring up Neurosis a lot in terms of comparisons. So let's get into it. Minsk, Ritual Fires of Abandonment. This is the Chicago-based band's second album, came out on Relapse Records in 2007, which, believe me, Relapse is going to be making some more appearances on here. I want to bring up the fact that this band's name is named after a city in Belarus, which had a unfortunate history of burning down, but being rebuilt, so it's sort of a Phoenix parable, but I see it as more of a really unlucky city. This is very trance-inducing. This is kind of their sound. Really long, drawn-out songs, lots of tribal percussion, layered as hell. We're talking, you know, coarse guitars, bass, drums, vocal passages, but we have loads of synths, and there's even saxophones on here. Like, these guys really try to create that wall of sound, and I would say it's almost meditative. It's meditative music for metalheads. So, you know, Neurosis plus maybe a splash of mescaline. Just a splash, though. Not enough to quite see God, but maybe just smell him. It's very sludgy, but it's also very lush. The melodies are really unique, and again, it kind of just drones you into this really cool sort of trance almost throughout the entire listen. The song Orphans of Piety, I think, is quite the centerpiece. I believe it is the second longest track on here, and I think it's over 15 minutes long. But this one has a lot of cool song building dynamics, lots of ebbs and flows, and a really cool sax solo. Like, it just kind of comes out of nowhere and kind of jazzes up the song a bit, but it adds a lot. Now, these guys are still around. I believe their most recent offering was in 2015, which I can't remember the name of the album, but I can definitely see the cover in my head, and I know I really liked it. Though I think they kind of stripped down a lot of the more trancy elements and kind of went with more straight up sludgy post-metal. This is definitely a really immersive listen. It's definitely not like one of those, like, I'm just gonna put this on and do chores or drive fast to. You're not. It's not gonna give you that sort of feel. But you can get really lost in it, which is kind of the cool thing about post-metal, and this album definitely embodies it. So definitely check this out. Bloodiest Descent. This is their debut, came out in 2011 on Relapse Records. This band is also from Chicago, and just to further the connection there, they even had a member here that played in Minsk live. Now, this is another kind of sludgy version of post-metal, though I think this one is a lot different in terms of the atmosphere it creates. It's a little bit more depressive, it's less trancy. This is very sullen across the board. I really like the clever riffing on here, especially the opening track and the last track. They both have a book-ending tremolo melody that I think is just really cool, kind of opens and closes the album really well. Very gloomy, very depressive. The vocals on here I think are pretty good. Sometimes they get a little outlandish. They kind of remind me of like Brent Hinds from Mastodon, except, I mean, if you've seen Brent Hinds live, sometimes he kind of goes a little bit off the rails, but, you know, a little bit like that. But it doesn't really, like, take you out of the song. It's, again, a very immersive, you know, listen, much like post-metal should be. Lots of cool acoustic passages that have almost sort of like an American folk touch to them, but there's some flat-out bangers on here, namely Dead Inside and Slave Rule, which I think are just absolutely crushing, but have great tension-building moments and then big releases. Really solid album. I still need to get the follow-up to this. I believe that is the only other release they have. They are still active as far as I know, and I would definitely like to check check out more by them and maybe hopefully get to see this live, because this sounds like it'd be really cool live. Check it out. Rosetta, Flies to Flame. This came out in 2014 on Translation Lost Records. This is a Philly-based post-metal, maybe post-rock act. This is their second EP, though EP is a little misleading because this is only 4 tracks, but it's still 40 minutes long. So we're talking really long, drawn-out songs and lush atmosphere. This one is interesting because this one doesn't really get like heavy in terms of like big distorted guitars until the last track. But what they do on here is really cool. There's a lot of like really interesting like delayed guitar effects, and the sound is completely filled out, and it's just lush and wonderful, but they're harsh vocals, so it kind of keeps this heavy feel even though the guitars are a little bit cleaner. Great slow builds as far as the songs. They just steadily keep building up the energy all throughout the songs. It's a great post-metal trait. I love the drum work on here. It's surprisingly very active. Like, you think post-metal, generally you think slower stuff. This is still slow in the tempo, I guess, slow to mid-tempo, but what the drummer's doing in terms of like accents and fills and off-time rhythms, I think is really cool. It adds a lot to the sound. And as I said, it doesn't get like traditionally heavy until the last track, Pegasus, which is a banger. But all these songs are absolutely killer. And unfortunately, I only own this and another EP from them. I need to get more Rosetta because I've been a fan of these guys for a while. I just have them mostly on compilations, I believe through Translation Loss and some other smaller labels. But this is fantastic stuff. It's really good mood music. It's somehow chill and intense at the same time, and I completely dig it. So definitely check this one out. Buried Inside, Spoils of Failure. This was the final album from these guys, came out in 2009 on Relapse Records. This was an Ontario-based sludge post-metal act. It kind of worked between the two. Very, very similar to Cult of Luna. Like, the sound is definitely similar to the earlier stuff. Like, not so much now where there's a lot more layering in terms of like that wall of sound that Cult of Luna creates. This was more focused on the sludge, and then sort of the atmosphere sort of came second, or just kind of came with it. It's definitely still post-metal though. It has all the hallmarks of it. The song building screams post-metal. It screams, you know, Neurosis and all that, and the intense layering of the sound. Though I think this is more about being doom-laden and dreary rather than spacey and trance-inducing. This is about the heavy. The vocals, when there are vocals, because the vocals seem kind of sparing on here, are very like hardcore driven. They're sort of a dry scream, and they definitely emote a lot. But God, the songwriting in here is absolutely fantastic. And I'm ashamed that I don't own more by them. I've been listening to this band courtesy of compilations once again, but I didn't pick up one until their last album. And I picked this one up when it came out, and then not too long after, literally, I think a little over a year after this came out, they broke up. And I believe they all kind of jumped on different projects, but I don't think anything remotely similar to this. I absolutely love this album. The track 3, because all of these are just Roman numerals, absolute monster of a track. I believe it is the longest track on here, and God, man, it just builds, and it is absolutely just crushingly heavy in spots, which is a little bit different on here in terms of some of the other stuff on here, because it's more, you know, trancey, ethereal. This brought the heavy, and I absolutely love it for that. Definitely need to get more by this band. I absolutely love their sound. It's a shame I didn't get into them until they broke up. But either way, definitely check this one out. It is absolutely amazing. A Storm of Light, and We Wept the Black Ocean Within. This is this band's debut album, came out in 2008 on Neurot Recordings. And yeah, there is a bit of a connection there because this features ex-members of Neurosis, Mouth of the Architect, and Tombs. And I did say I was going to make some comparisons to Neurosis. Well, this is probably the one I'm going to make the most to, since it not only has an ex-member, it kind of sounds like Neurosis. The ex-member from Neurosis is the vocalist slash keyboardist who played with them for a while. I can't remember his tenure in there, but he is very much bringing Neurosis' sound to this band. The vocals are very similar to Scott Kelly's in terms of that tuneful groan. It's very anguished. And musically, this is very similar to Neurosis, though I think these guys are doing something a little bit more atmospheric. Not as though Neurosis isn't atmospheric as hell. Lots of lush synths and giant doomy guitars. This album has a very oppressive, dark feel to it. And with all the samples of the ocean and storms, they kind of stuck with the theme there. It actually gives you like the whole, I don't know, maybe like lost at sea or adrift and at the mercy of the elements sort of feel. It's, I don't know, very immersive and very dark. Like there's not a lot of like hope and merriment on this album. I mean, it probably shouldn't be. It's, you know, an offshoot of Neurosis technically. There's not a lot of hope and merriment in that band. But pockmarked in here are some really cool, like almost post-punk moments. Like there was stuff on here that reminded me a lot of Killing Joke in terms of just the overall sound, like the riffs. The vocals will get a little more tuneful, though still kind of groaned. And the synths just kind of screamed like, you know, Killing Joke. And I don't know, I really just kind of got into that because it kind of broke up the waves and waves and waves of depression. And waves, ocean, again, yeah, there's a lot of that theme here. Now, towards the end, I think it does get a little too atmospheric. In fact, I think it has 2 tracks that are just almost all atmosphere back to back. But the songs that are up front, I mean, namely Vast and Endless and, oh God, Thunderhead, absolutely awesome. They really, again, stick with that theme. Really, really good stuff. Definitely check this band out. I know they're still around. They have other releases, though this is the only one I own by them. And I probably just picked it up because I saw the Neurot logo on it. And again, I love Neurosis. But yeah, definitely check it out. Solid band. Palms, self-titled. This is the lone studio release from this band. Came out in 2013 on Ipecac Records. And this is essentially a side project from former members of ISIS and Deftones. And believe me, you'll know exactly which member of Deftones it is as soon as the vocals start. Chino Moreno. So pretty much Deftones and ISIS working together to form a sound that's kind of somewhere in between. And for the most part, I would say this kind of borders more on post-rock. It's not as heavy. It's, again, very dreamy. You have all these clean guitars with their big, like, lush, reverby sounds. And Chino's vocals, which are very light and airy. Like, he doesn't really scream on this. This is almost all singing. It really kind of ends up sounding like the softer side to both bands, which isn't a bad thing. There are some heavier passages on here. The last track, Antarctic Handshake, actually has some really cool heavy moments on it. But for the most part, this is really just kind of chill and more like along the lines of alternative, maybe like shoegaze. There's lots of strange guitar effects and like big sweeping synths on here. It is produced very well. I do like the mix a lot. And while you can tell who's in it and like which bands they came from, it doesn't sound too much like either. It is kind of its own thing. Now, I don't know if this band's actually going to do another full length. I mean, of course, Deftones are perpetually busy because it's the Deftones. They're still huge. And I don't know what all the members of ISIS are still doing. I know Aaron Turner's still doing a whole bunch of stuff, but he's not one of the guys on here. And they only played like 4 shows to support it. So I don't know. I mean, this might just be a one-off thing. If so, you know, I'll probably keep what I say limited just because we could do a retro review on it and go more in depth. But know that this is a solid album. This is probably the lightest offering on here in terms of like heaviness, but it's still really good and you should check it out. LLNN Deads. This is the 3rd release from this Danish post-metal / hardcore / sludge band. This came out on Pelagic Records in 2018 and it was really close to making my year-end list that year, but I think that was the year we only did 25, so this probably would have been on it. This is completely the opposite of Palms. This is one of the heaviest things in terms of post-metal related stuff. Now it is kind of a hybrid and I don't know if I'm kind of reaching on here just because it kind of is in a lot of different camps, but I think the post-metal elements are very much there and they have been labeled post-metal in some circles, but sludge in others, and I don't know. Either way, this is disgustingly heavy. This might be the soundtrack to the apocalypse. It is unforgivingly just nasty, layered, down-tuned guitars, and I mean they are low. Like you can hear the strings just flopping on the bass and the guitars. Vocals are just raw, hardcore shouts, and there are layers of just dissonant keys and just samples. Everything about this album is raw as hell. I just brought these guys up in a collection update because I got the album that I believe preceded this, and that one was disgustingly heavy, but I think they just ramped up everything on this one because the production is just inescapable destruction of everything. I don't know, that's how it feels. It feels so just brimming with hate and anguish, and God, it's like Neurosis meets Godflesh, and take the heaviest elements of both of those bands and put them right here. The breakdowns in here are absolutely disgustingly heavy, much like everything else on here. And even when it pauses a little bit to just sort of build up some atmosphere, it still feels heavy and oppressive the entire time. I fell in love with this band as soon as I heard the song Armada, which I strongly recommend jamming that one. But, I mean, jam the whole album. It's all fantastic, and it will be the heaviest post-metal related thing, at least on this list, I would say, because this is just disgusting in all the right ways. So yeah, if you're looking for something that is post-metal related, post-metal adjacent, but you want something that is less about the clean melodies, not much is clean on here. This is just ugly and heavy, and you should check it out. At the Soundawn Shifting. This is the second band from this Italian post-metal act. This came out in 2010 on Life Force Records, and this is a different style of post-metal once again. This is almost more progressive post-metal. The amount of different elements these guys throw in here, it's almost like the BT Bam approach to post-metal. We have jazz breaks, complete with saxophone, which the saxophone was surprisingly not just like an isolated little, like, oh, we had this one jazzy moment. No, it's all over here. The vocals are wild. They go from, you know, hardcore shouts and screams to very tuneful singing and almost kind of like jazzy, maybe like kind of Mike Patton-ish crooning. And of course the dynamics, which can turn on a dime, going from heavy and sludgy to just jazzy and introspective. That progressive flair in here really sort of makes this stand out a lot. Now, I don't have the first one, so I can't tell you where they progressed from that one. And I don't have the follow-up to this, which was released actually some time ago. They really haven't released anything in almost 7 years, I believe, or maybe 7 years and change. Which sucks because I believe their last one was self-release, so I don't know how well the distribution was on that one. But I love the adventurous songwriting on here. Like, this is a really interesting approach to post-metal, very much akin to a band like The Ocean or Burst, which wasn't post-metal, was more prog metal, but, you know, sort of combine the two. And I think this sound could really flourish now if it got, like, better promotion. Like, The Ocean is absolutely incredible, and they incorporate a lot of different instrumentation, songwriting styles. They're almost a prog band. I would consider them more of a prog band than a post-metal band, but they still have all those post-metal elements. This is very similar to that. Shifting is a hell of a name for this album just because that is exactly what this album does. It shifts around a lot in terms of styles, and I don't know, maybe it was too much for some people to absorb and it didn't take off on the label, but I really dug it. And I think there's definitely a place for this band in terms of their sound. So I'm gonna see if I can find more by them. Hopefully they have some physical media. But either way, I strongly recommend checking out this one for sure because this is an adventurous, fun banger of an album. Check it out. Zodiac Sermons. This is the second album from this post-metal supergroup, I guess. You have members of Balboa, Rosetta, Javelina, and Lick Golden Sky, which that one didn't fit because it did an NNA. And this is a really interesting approach to post-metal. First off, this is a full length, but it's a little bit over half an hour, so this is kind of short for post-metal. And the production, or even like the songwriting, is a little bit different. This has a lot of empty space. This isn't all about like the giant dense layers of sounds, which that is a big thing in post-metal. It's just layering and creating that wall of sound. There's a lot of empty space on this, and it's really cool because you can hear like the individual instrumentation really shine through. Great mix of vocals on here. I think there are at least 2 vocalists because there's a big switch up between clean vocals and harsh vocals that both sound very distinct. So they might be coming from the same person, but I think it's 2 separate vocalists. The vibe on this though is surprisingly chill. Like, it actually has like a chill stoner metal vibe throughout. There's even passages on here that remind me of Pink Floyd. It's kind of laid back, but I don't know, it's heavy in its own right. Like, the bass, I think, is very prominent in here, and it's very fuzzy. Like, it has kind of like a fuzzy doom metal, stoner metal feel to it. And it's very riffy, too. But it's again, kind of chill. It's very relaxed, but it has like sort of like this kind of old school heaviness, like just like a little hint of Black Sabbath in there, and then of course mixing that Pink Floyd vibe. Really solid listen. I think it gets a little off the rails towards the end, like the atmosphere to actual songs ratio starts getting unsound, but this is a really solid listen. I thoroughly enjoyed coming back to this one. I hadn't jammed this in a long time, and now I remember why I liked it so much. So yeah, definitely check this one out. I probably should look around for their first one. If it's anything like this, I'll probably dig it. So yeah, if you're looking for a nice little chill but kind of heavy album, definitely check this one out. North, Light the Way. This is the most recent and fourth release from this Tucson-based post-metal band. Well, post-metal slash sludge slash post-rock. A lot of slashes, but it's post-metal at its core. This came out in 2016 on Prosthetic Records, and I would say this band is just underrated, at least in my opinion. But this is probably my favorite release from them, so that's why I'm bringing this one up. This is a great balance of sludge metal riffs and post-metal atmosphere. I absolutely love the songwriting in here. It is very heavy, very dissonant, but there's really cool breaks in there in terms of like just melody and, you know, clean passages that definitely kind of evoke different feelings. It's a very moody listen. It's very dark and sullen in spots, and then, I don't know, like introspective in others, which is, again, I think a hallmark of good post-metal. It's that really good balance of atmosphere to riffs, because these guys bring heavy riffs. This is pretty much like Neurosis meets Crowbar. And again, I keep throwing Neurosis out there, but I think this one's really accurate in terms of the comparison of the two. The vocals kind of sit almost somewhere between Kirk's graveled crooning and Scott Kelly's graveled crooning. Yeah, they do kind of sound similar, don't they? Anyway, the guitars on here are giant. They are huge and sludgy, and I like the fact that this is a nice heavy post-metal album. Long songs driven by giant riffs and just mood building, great songwriting. The production is absolutely fantastic on here. And I just like the feel that you can get kind of lost in it, like that sort of trancey feel, and just still headbang your ass off in other parts. Great album. I strongly recommend this band in general. I have most of their releases, and if I'm missing any, I'm definitely gonna go hunt them down. But yeah, strongly recommend this. This is an absolutely killer album. Definitely check it out. All right, well, that knocks out another one of these. And as far as future underrated ones, I don't know. I could go a lot of different directions. And I'll be honest, I even made a list of nu metal ones. So I don't know. I might actually do that. It might be fun to go back and listen to that. Either that, or I'll just listen to a bunch of albums that I still don't like and won't be able to make a list, and that'll be a whole bunch of wasted time. That probably won't happen. There's probably some stuff in there that I could still probably defend from that era, because, I mean, it was kind of important. Not as important as all the thrash and death metal, but it definitely helped shape me. And I think within any subgenre, there are going to be underrated gems. And, you know, nu metal seems like it's getting an odd second wind right now. I'm not welcoming this wind blowing through, but it's happening. And, well, why not bring up some of the stuff that I used to listen to? Not saying that's where I'm going exactly. There's still plenty of other stuff to talk about, but that is a possibility. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. And we also have Patreon going, so if you are so inclined, definitely jump on there, subscribe. We're going to put exclusive content on there. We're still getting started on it, so there's not a lot of stuff on there, but we're going to keep peppering in a whole bunch of exclusive content for all our Patreon fans. And we would really appreciate the help, because we love doing this and we love all your support so far. And we just hit 5,000 subs, and that is absolutely mind-blowing. But we want to definitely keep this thing rolling, because we're having a lot of fun talking to all you guys and just doing this stuff. It is a hell of a fun outlet, and we absolutely love it. So with that, I thank all of you, and we will catch you later.